Welcome to Live DAF, your online DAF Yomi Shir.
Hello and Shalom Aleichem. Welcome back. Today's DAF is Bava Basra Lamed Tes. We are holding on Lamed Ches Lamed Beis, 3 lines towards the bottom. Hechidami Macha asks the Gemara. We speak so much about the Chazaka Macha process. So the Chazaka of Shalei Sham is based on the following precept. The owner, the former owner, would never tolerate, he wouldn't allow a stranger to come sit in his property just quietly. He would protest, he would lodge a complaint, he would confront him. So now that the machzik, the current possessor, can't produce a shtar, a document of ownership, doesn't necessarily indicate that he's not the owner. Perhaps he purchased the property, but it's been many years of quiet. He just disregarded his documents, and that's why he doesn't have anything to prove ownership. So that's why the owner, in order to preempt this development, has to go ahead and make it macha, lodge a protest, complain against that fellow, and put him on notice. So this way, if in fact he is the rightful owner, he'll make sure to hold on to that, to retain proper documentation to prove ownership. And if the mecha was issued, and we assume that it filtered over to the machzik, and still the machzik now cannot produce, when confronted, he can't produce any documentation, that puts him on shaky footing, and he loses the property. Because why did you discard of that document if you know that there's trouble brewing? You know the owner is complaining against you. Okay, so now how does a macha take place? What exactly is contained in the macha? What is the content of the macha? Hechidami macha. Amar of Zvid, you can't just say, speak in general terms. Plan gazlanu. You should know that this fellow on my property, he's just a gazlan. Okay, so you can't just say, Reuven and Shimon, the Edom that are listening to the macha, you can't just approach them and tell them about Shimon being a robber. It's too general. It's not personal. It's not specific. Plan gazlanu. It doesn't work. Okay, but, and the Rashbam says, because he has no clue why. What do you want from him? You're not explaining why. He's a gazlan. You're just informing people that such and such person, okay, Reuven ben Shimon, is a gazlan. Why, when, where, how? You're not explaining yourself. So how would Reuven know that you're referring to the specific episode with the field? Basically, you're not putting him on notice. You're not informing him that you're challenging his specific hold on this property. But planyo gazlanyu, but if you're specific and personal, I want you to know that such and such person is a gazlan, he's a robber because he's on my property. Big gazlanos. He's unrightfully there. He's totally taking over my property as a gazlan. And I'm not going to let this remain the way it is. Guess what? Tomorrow I'm going to bring him to the bezdin. By the way, the Rashbam and Taisus say that he doesn't have to necessarily add this last point. It's just understood that the outcome of this confrontation, right? It's going to result in a court case. So basically, the point is just make it personal, make it specific. You can't speak in general terms. You should know that Reuven is a gazlan. Why? What? That's not enough to put him on notice with respect to this property. No, he's a gazlan because he's touching my property, because he's being gezel my land. Oh, now you're putting him on notice. He knows what exactly you have against him. That's an effective macha. Havi macha. Okay, so now we know the content of the macha. What happens in the following case? Amar, the owner, the Marakama, the former owner, when he let it be known to the witnesses, to the Edom, when he lodged his complaint, he added a restrictive stipulation. Lo ysemru. Amar lo ysemru. He told him, don't reveal this information to the machzik. Don't tell Reuven that I'm complaining about him. Okay? What is the status of this macha'a? Does it work or not? I mean, the whole point is that it should reach him. It should put him on notice. But in this case, he's not allowing it. Amar of Zvid, it doesn't work. Haka Amar, because he told him, like Tamer Lay, don't reveal this information, don't convey it to him. So, of course, it defeats the purpose, it doesn't work. Rav Papa Amar, he disagrees. Let's pay close attention to the wording that he chose. He said, don't tell him. I'm afraid of him, I'm intimidated by, don't tell him. Don't tell him personally, but tell others. And eventually, it's going to get him. That's okay. You can tell other people. So, your friend has a friend who has a friend. Eventually, it's going to filter back to him and accomplish our intended goal. Chavrach, your friend, Chavr Islay has his own friend. Chavrach, your friend's friend, Chavr Islay has his friend. So eventually, it's going to reach his ears. It's an effective macha. Okay, so again, he's giving them that macha, but he says, don't tell him. Rav Ziz said it doesn't work. Rav Papa says it works. Eventually, it's going to reach his ears. Next case. Amr lay, lo yamrin lay. Suppose, when the owner lodged his complaint to the Edom, he actually instructed them to pass the information on and inform the machzik. But they responded as follows: Amr lay, lo yamrin lay. We're not going to go tell him. We're not going to bother traveling to his to that location. We can't do it. So we're not going to be telling him. So what is the status of this macha? Amar Zvid, it doesn't work. Haka Amr lay, but they told him, lo yamrin lay, we're not going to tell him. So it defeats the purpose of the macha. It doesn't work. Rav Papa Amar, once again, let's focus on the words. Lididei lo yamrin lay. They said to the owner that they're not going to be conveying the information directly to the machzik. Okay, but to others they will, right? Lachrini, Amrilu, they're going to convey it to others. And eventually, it's going to make its rounds and make it back to the machzik. He'll find out, and it's going to put him on notice. Chavr Islay, right? Chavr Islay. Next case. Amrlu lo tepikul chushusa. When the owner presented his macha to the Edom, he told them very strictly, he says, lo tepikul chushusa. Don't say a word about this. Keep it under wraps. Shusa, the Radak at Tehillim says, it's like missing a ches. Sometimes they would, sort of not express the throat-related letter. So the ches is a throat-related letter. So it's like shuchsa. This discussion. Don't say a word about this conversation. Keep it a secret. That certainly doesn't work because you're not putting him on notice. I'm being fair to the machzik, right? Amar Zvid, Haka Amar Loy. Look, he told him don't tell anybody, so it's ineffective. What if they, on their own, offer this? He told them to pass this information on, make it public. But they responded by saying, look, we're not public people, we're private people, we're discreet. Amar Loy Mafkina Shisa, we're not going to be speaking about this at all. Amar Papa, okay, too bad. Okay, if this is what they told him, we assume they're going to keep their word. They're not going to be spreading this information, so he has to find another venue for his macha. Here comes another chiddush, a twist. Rav Huna Breder Rishua Amar, no. Even in this case it works. You know why? What do you mean? They're not telling anybody. Well, that's what they think they're doing. But eventually they're going to slip. Anything which is not really incumbent upon a person, if it's not imposed on a person to do or not to do, so even if he chooses to offer that to volunteers, such as in this case where they came forward and they offered not to reveal it, guess what's going to happen down the road? They're going to forget about this commitment. Amarla, he's going to say it without realizing. So if he's forced to do something, he'll keep that. But if he offers it on his own, it's not something which he's really obligated to do. So although currently he's offering it as out of the goodness of his heart, let's say, but eventually he's going to forget about what he said and he's going to spread the word. So eventually the machzik will find out about it. So it works. So in summary, we know how to do the macha, right? The content has to be personal, very specific. Now, what about the following 4 cases? If the owner, if the bailam, told the Edom, lo yseim relay, don't tell the machzik about this macha. Does it work? According to Rav Zvid, no. According to Rav Papa, yeah, because they'll tell other people, and eventually it's going to make its way to the machzik. What if the machzik says, lo ytepek shusa? Don't say a peep about this, not a word. All agree it doesn't work. What if the Edom came forward and they said, look, we're not going to be telling him. According to Rav Zvid, it doesn't work. According to Rav Papa, once again it works because they're going to be spreading it to others, and eventually it's going to make its way to the machzik. What if they offer, loy mapkinan shusa, we're not going to be saying anything to anybody? According to Rav Zvid, Rav Papa, it doesn't work. Comes Rav Huna, Breder Ishor, and he says, well, guess what? In this case it will work, although they're claiming to keep it a secret, but eventually it's going to slip out. Continues the Gemara. What about the question we discussed yesterday? Does macha need to be personal? Does it have to be in front of the machzik? Do you have to confront him personally? Or can you do it from afar? Amar Rava, he quotes Rav Nachman, macha shaloi b'fanav havi macha, even if the macha takes place at a different location. As long as you did it in front of, 2 Edom who can testify, who can spread the word, and testify eventually that in fact you did the macha, it works. Eisvei Rava, so Rava who quoted Rav Nachman, asked the kasha of Rav Nachman, how could you say so? Remember we had a Mishnah yesterday, where Rabbi Yehuda says, the reason why chazakah takes 3 years is to allow for long distance arrangements. The only reason why we need 3 years is al-kadesh to accommodate a case where the owner is stuck in China, right? So we want to give him a chance to come back and make his macha. So the first year, they notice somebody in his property. They find out, they go and it raises a flag, and they go and they tell the owner they travel to China. They travel a year away till they get him. They inform him that in fact somebody is meddling with his property, and the owner comes running. So that's the 3rd year. He comes running back to confront the machzik and to make his macha. Why? Why does he have to come personally? If you can do macha at a distance, why trouble yourself to make the trip all the way back here? Why does he have to come back? Let him stay in his place and be meicha from there. Says the Gemara, you're right. It's unnecessary. But Rabbi Yehuda is just giving the owner some good advice. Halachically speaking, he can do it from long distance, but it's good advice. It's a good idea to come back personally and retrieve and salvage anything you can get back. Don't wait around, because by the time you come back, the property you might get back eventually, but the bananas that he's taking right now, you're not going to see it again. Rashbam says, Kosha gezel hanechal. It's very difficult to retrieve something which has already been consumed. So come back quickly to salvage whatever's here. That's all Rabbi is saying. He should come back to retrieve his property and the peiros that are still available. Now, let's realize that Rava was the one who asked this kasha. How could you say macha at a distance works? The fact that Rava asked this question on Rav Nachman, it would seem from this that Rava does not hold the macha that in fact you could make the macha from a distance. What do you mean? But in yesterday's daf, Rabbi himself concluded that you may do so. That it works. Answers the Gemara. Yeah, initially he held that it doesn't work, but then when he heard from Rav Nachman, Basa the Shama Rav Nachman Savra, he accepted it and he applied it. Lahalacha lamas. Okay, so what's the bottom line here? So we know about the content of the mecha, right? It has to be specific, it has to be personal, it could be from a distance as well. Now, next question is, in front of how many people? How many people have to be present? How many people have to hear the mecha? 2, 3, how many? So once again, we have a difference of opinion. We have a story, Ashkechinu Rabbi Yisrael Rechanina. He met the students of Rabbi Yehuda, Talmid of Rabbi Yehuda. When he asked them, no, what did the Rebbe say regarding this question? Mi Amar Rabbi Yehuda, Mecha B'kama, did Rabbi Yehuda teach you how many individuals need to be present when the Baalim makes the Mecha against the Machzik? Did you hear anything from Rabbi Yehuda in this matter? So actually there was a difference of opinion as to Rabbi Yehuda's position between two Talmidim of Rabbi Yehuda. Maybe they heard it differently, maybe at different times. Rabbi Yehuda, he quotes Rabbi Yehuda, Mecha b'fnei shnayim. A Mecha needs to take place merely in front of two people, two Eidim, who can later testify that you made the Mecha, that's enough. They'll spread the word, it's enough. Rabbi Yehuda, he says that's not enough. Mecha b'fnei shloisha. You need 3 individuals present during the Mecha to make it public, to make waves, to ensure that that information reaches the ears of the machzik and puts him on notice, to ensure that he keeps the shtar handy, right? So it's either 2 or 3. Says the Gemara, what's the machlekas talian? What's the point of machlekas? Lema b'derabba barafuna kamiflaki. Perhaps the machlekas is based on a concept presented by Rabba Barafuna regarding halachas of lashon hara, unrelated to our sugya, but we're going to try to derive this concept from there. The Amar Rabba Barafuna. What's considered public knowledge, public information? Kol musa de mis amra ba'apitlas. Any negative information which was conveyed in the presence of 3 people, ordinary people, not tzaddikim, regular people who you assume are going to spread that gossip further. Leis be misham lishna bisha. So if somebody conveys this information, he has not violated the laws of lashon hara because the information has already become public. Once 3 people heard it, 3 is a crowd, the whole town knows about it. As if, right? We consider it like it's just public, it's mefursam, and you know the idea of lashon hara is don't promote information that can harm, the subject matter, the subject person, whether it's physically, financially, emotionally, right? But once it's out there, it's known, you're not really contributing in any way to his detriment, so you're allowed to do that. Now, before we cash in on this allowance, we're meant to know that the Chavetz Chaim writes extensively about this matter, and he says it's not so simple to simply just rely on this heter of ba'apit lasa, because firstly he says the basic understanding of this halacha is given to many interpretations amongst the Rishonim. First of all, we have Rashi in Erechin says we're not speaking about lashon hara, we're speaking about a secret, confidential information which typically you don't just convey without permission, but once it's been conveyed to 3 people, it's public knowledge, there's no issue of being megalas soid, so it's not related to lashon hara. Lashon hara you can't convey regardless. So Rashi doesn't learn like the Rashbam over here, who says that once the lashon hara is known, you can just, Next we have is Tosfos over here, and Tosfos in Maseches Erechin. Likewise, puts a whole new twist on this issue. He says we're not speaking about outright gossip. Rather, we're speaking about sort of arbitrary information that can be interpreted both ways, positively and negatively. For instance, a person can say, look, the oven is always burning in this and so-and-so's home. They're always cooking and baking. Well, it can be interpreted positively. Well, they're always busy, preparing meals for elderly people. it can be bad. They're always busy making food. Look, these people are totally infatuated with mealtime, right? So, how do we know what he had in mind? Ba'apit lasaf. He said it publicly. We assume he meant well. He would never have said it this way because of concern that the subject person would have found out and would have really, not have been happy. So the assumption is if you say it in public, you meant well. We interpret what you said positively. So according to Tosfos, again, we're not speaking about outright gossip with a heter of publicly known information. That's not the point. So the Chafetz Chaim seems to go with the Tosfos because that's the most stringent, strict interpretation of this Gemara. So only in the case of this type of, information that's given to interpretation, which he calls avak lashon hara, the public element of it gives it credence and gives it a positive light. Okay? So in any case, let's go back to the concept here. B'fnei shloisha, something conveyed to 3 people is considered public. Right? Public information. That's Rabbi Bar Huna's chiddush. Now let's draw that back to our Gemara, to Macha, which also sort of relies on the concept, it's based on the concept of publicity, right? You need that information to be conveyed to the machzik, right? For it to be an effective Macha, to put him on notice. So the question of 2 or 3 is based on this question. The opinion that held that 2 people is enough for Macha, Leslie. He doesn't hold to this idea, the Rabbi Bar Huna, that you need dafka 3 people to make it public. 2 is enough. Eventually, the information will spread, will reach his ears. So that's sufficient. The Shita which says you need 3, Isle, the Rabbi Bar Huna, he holds a Rabbi Bar Huna that only 3 is considered a crowd, makes waves, makes the information really public, and that's why for an effective macha, you need to find 3 people, a full audience. Is that the case? Is that the machlekes? Is that what it's based on? No, not necessarily, says the Gemara. The Kuli Alma Islu, the Rabbi Bar Huna. Perhaps everybody conceptually agrees to Rabbi Bar Huna that what? For Gili Milsa, for publicity, for true publicity, you need a crowd. 3 is a crowd. But over here by the Chazak, the question of 2 or 3 is based on a different question. The question is where he's making the macha. Is he required to confront the machzik personally? So in that case, he's hearing it from his mouth. You don't have to publicize it. You just need 2 people to be there so that they could eventually testify that it took place. Right? He needs that information. He needs that confirmation from the Edom. But you don't need publicity. The fellow is listening to it coming straight from my mouth. So you don't need more than 2. You can't make the macha at a distance. You have to confront the culprit himself. So he's hearing it from my mouth. We don't need publicity. Whereas the other shita, which says you need 3, because he holds, like we said before, you can very well make the macha at a distance. So the only way to ensure that the information travels back to the machzik is if you do it in front of 3 people, as per Rabbi Bar Huna's concept. That's one way to learn. Another way to learn is everybody agrees to the halacha, like we said before. You can make the macha wherever you are. So what's the question of 2 or 3? The one that says 2 is enough, all you need is witnesses. And eventually, a friend has a friend, and it's going to get to the machzik. By the way, there's a machlekes in the poskim whether you need proper witnesses, edim ksherim, or it's just enough to have 2 people, whatever it is, because it's about spreading the word. So that's one opinion. The other shita which says you need 3 kasavar, he holds you need to make a scene. 2 edim don't do that. In order to ensure that in fact information reaches the machzik, you need 3 people to really make a ruckus, to make a scene, to make this information publicly known, and only that's considered an effective and acceptable macha. Okay, so let's summarize this piece of Gemara. We know the content of the macha. We know where the macha is, but how many people need to be present? It's either 2 or 3. Initially, the Gemara based this on the question of what generates publicity. The Gemara fell away from that and said, no, of course, proper publicity is only accomplished through three people. Three people is a crowd, make it public. The question is, do you need it to be a public setting? Because if you hold that Mecha takes place in front of him, you don't need that. So the Shaila is whether it's B'fanav or Shlei B'fanav. And finally we learned, all agree you can do it Shlei B'fanav. The question is, to what extent of publicity is required? Do you need 3 or 2 is enough? Gidel Bar Menyumi, that was his name. He discovered an intruder on his property and he sought to make a macha'a. Okay, so he went to the Beis Medrash, right? And he found 3 chachamim sitting there. He said, oh, what an opportunity for my macha'a. Ashichinu, he encountered Rav Huna, Rav Chia, Bar Rav. He didn't need 3 people, but it so happens to be that there were 3 people sitting, Rav Chilki, Bar Tuvi. Davi Yasser, they were sitting in Macha Kamai, he made the macha'a in front of them. Okay. He checked it off his list, he came back home. L'shana, the next year, he came back again for another macha. Hada aslam chuyei. Amrlis, they told him, you don't need to do this so often. You don't need to make a macha year after year. You've already made your statement, you've put the machzik on notice, that's enough. As Rav says, once you did the macha the first year, there's no need to come back next year again. Because some say, Amar Chia Barav was the one who told him. So bottom line is, there's no need to repeat your macha. But, Amar Ishlakish, Mishim Bar Kapara, it's not a forever thing. It's not once in a lifetime. You have to come back before the 3 years are up. You can't let 3 years pass between protest and protest. Because the fellow might say, look, you changed your mind, you conceded to my ownership. At the end of every 3 year, before the 3 years are up, you have to keep on coming back. So every 3 years minus, come back and make a macha. Now Taisus, by the way, says, it's not because we're concerned that the machzik will claim that he purchased it after the first protest. You know, he loses his credibility. I mean, the fellow claimed that he was a gazlan, he's not selling it to him, right? He lost his credibility. That's not the point. The point is, because if he lets too much time pass, the machzik will say, well, actually the owner admits to my ownership. He conceded. He did teshuvah. I'm really the one on the right. Look, the fact is it's been many years, he hasn't come back. So that's why, in order to preempt that type of claim, he has to come back every 3 years. Tue Jul, Rabbi Yehuda, he didn't agree with this. Tue means he was challenging, he challenged this opinion. The fact is, once you make a macha once, you've already labeled him as a gazlan. Vichi gazlan, ish the chazaka. Since when does a gazlan have a right to have a chazaka? Asks the Gemara, hold it. You're drawing conclusions. You're calling him a gazlan? It's an unproven allegation. We don't know that he's a gazlan. The owner is claiming as such. Gazlan sakatayta. You mean he's really a gazlan? No, it means kid gazlan. He's being treated as a gazlan, meaning he's being alleged to be a gazlan. Yesh le chazaka. Why would he have a chazaka? Meaning he was put on notice once. He should be careful going forward. He should never, if he's really the owner, he should never let go of that star, no matter how many years pass. Therefore, says Rabbi Yehuda, there's no need for the owner to come back again and again. Amar Rava? No. Hilchah said the conclusion is tzarich limchais b'soif kol gimel v'gimel. You must come back every 3 years. Now, based on this halacha, let's just continue on this line. Tani bar kapara. Now that we learned that you have to repeat your macha over and over, but you have to make sure that you're consistent with respect to your claims against the machzor. You can't change your story in the middle. First you said he stole the property, then you said, well, he was there because, he lent me money and he took the property as a collateral and he's just, consuming the crop to be applied towards as a loan, as a repayment for the loan. So you're changing your story. He's rightfully there, but you should know he's not really the owner. That's being inconsistent. You're contradicting yourself. It cancels it all out. So you have to make sure you're consistent throughout. Irer, he makes the, let's say he came and challenged the machzik. Chaz of Irer, he returned again later to lodge a complaint. Chaz of Irer, and he did it again. Im machmas tana rishani Irer, if he came back the second and third time, repeating the same argument as the first and second, fine. In the chazaka, that cancels the chazaka because the macha, right, undoes the chazaka. But if he changes the story in the middle, that puts his macha into question, and we don't accept it. Yesh le chazaka, in which case the machzik's chazaka gets reinstated and he's established as the owner. Okay, let's just quickly recap today's daf. The content of the mechal can't be just, in general terms. You have to be personal, you have to be specific, put them on notice. What if there is some sort of restriction in terms of how the information is going to be conveyed? So we had several cases, and the conclusion according to the Rashbam is the halacha l'maisa is in all cases it works, except where the owner instructs the Edom not to reveal the information to anybody. How many people have to be there? Machlek is 2 or 3. We had several ways to explain it. Once you do the mecha, you don't have to come back year after year, but Rava Paschal like by kapara. B'seif kol gimel v'gimel is required, and the Gemara concludes with one word of caution to the owner: keep your story consistent. All the best to you and Hatzlacha Rabbah.